The key turned in the lock with a soft click that echoed down the dim hallway of Aria Vale's downtown apartment. She froze, breath held, the way a person does when they're trying not to smile too soon. She'd imagined this moment the entire flight home, Lucas looking up, shocked, relieved, maybe pulling her into his arms when he realized she'd come back 3 days early. Their anniversary was tomorrow. But tonight she'd planned to surprise him. Dinner at Morello's, the place where he'd first told her he loved her. A weekend in the mountains. The vintage cufflinks in her purse, cool and heavy with meaning. 3 years together, solid, stable, perfect. Or so she thought. A thin strip of golden light bled from the crack beneath her bedroom door. Lucas must have fallen asleep waiting for her nightly check-in call. The thought warmed her chest. She kicked off her heels quietly, padding across the hardwood in stocking feet, smiling at how proud he'd be of her for closing the Chicago deal early. She pushed open the bedroom door. The world didn't just crack, it detonated. The lamp cast a soft amber glow over tangled sheets, over bare legs, over 2 bodies intertwined in a way she would have recognized even if she'd been blind, deaf, and dreaming. Lucas's head jerked up first, eyes wide, mouth slack, face draining of color. But the woman beneath him, that was the detail that carved itself into her brain with a hot, irreversible knife. Brielle. Her younger sister. Her golden girl. Her family's darling. Brielle's lips curled into a slow smirk, unapologetic, almost pleased. Oops. Aria couldn't breathe. Lucas grabbed for the sheet, stumbling backward like a coward caught in the wrong spotlight. Aria, we thought you were still in Chicago. Until when? Her voice came out steady, shockingly even. Until you had time to change the sheets? Until you could pretend this wasn't happening? Brielle sat up lazily, brushing blonde hair behind her ear with a confidence that slapped Aria across the face harder than any hand ever could. Oh, come on, Aria. Don't be dramatic. You can't be surprised. Surprised? Her pulse roared in her ears. Betrayal pulsed like heat beneath her skin. You chose her, Aria whispered. My own sister. He chose me, Brielle corrected, sliding out of bed as if modeling for a camera. You've been dating 3 years and still no ring. No spark. He wanted passion. You, she shrugged. You're just boring. The word sliced deep. Aria's mother had said versions of it her entire life. Too serious. Too focused. Not soft enough. Not fun enough. Not Brielle. Lucas reached toward her as if he hadn't just wrecked her entire existence. Aria, please, we can talk. Get out. Her voice dropped, cold as stone. Both of you. Lucas froze at the look in her eyes, a look she had never used on anyone before. Brielle moved with infuriating slowness, pulling on Aria's blouse, the one she'd borrowed last month without returning. At the doorway she paused, giving Aria a pitying glance that dripped poison. You'll forgive me eventually. You always do. That's your problem, you're too soft. The world eats people like you alive. The door slammed. Silence swallowed the apartment whole. Aria didn't cry. She stripped the bed with surgical precision. Every sheet, every blanket, every trace of them, shoved into a garbage bag and dragged down the hall, past curious neighbors, into the dumpster. She showered until the water ran ice cold, scrubbing herself raw. When she finally faced her reflection, her green eyes were rimmed red, but dry. Something inside her had cracked wide open. The old Aria, the peacekeeper, the forgiver, the girl who swallowed pain so others wouldn't feel discomfort, that girl was gone. In her place stood someone quieter, sharper, dangerous, in a way she didn't yet understand. The days blurred. Her mother called it a misunderstanding. Her father urged her to be reasonable. Brielle painted herself as emotional, impulsive, not thinking straight. Lucas sent pathetic apologies. Her family wanted peace. None wanted accountability. Aria stopped answering. She poured herself into work instead, taking every project, every late night, every chance to outrun the hollow ache in her chest. And then, 2 weeks after the betrayal, her boss pulled her aside. "Aria, we're assigning you the Valentino Imports account. Huge client. High stakes. Their U.S. expansion is chaotic, and they want an expert to rebuild their brand. You're ready." She accepted instantly. She needed the distraction. She needed power back in her hands. She needed something to pull her out of the numbness. What she didn't know, what no file could warn her, was that the man she was about to meet would set her entire world on a collision course with danger, desire, and destruction. A man named Lorenzo Moretti. A man who ruled an empire with velvet gloves and iron fists. A man who would change her life forever. Monday morning dawned sharp and cold, the kind of morning that made the city feel carved from steel. Aria stood outside the towering glass building, smoothing her charcoal suit, steadying her breath. This was just business. A new account. A new challenge. But something in her chest flickered, a pulse, a warning, a pull she couldn't name. The receptionist guided her to the top floor. The elevator doors opened into an office that felt like another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the room with pale daylight, sweeping across dark wood, leather, and artwork expensive enough to buy her entire apartment building. Power lived here. It breathed in the air. "Miss Vale." The voice behind her wasn't loud, but it resonated. Deep. Confident. Commanding in a way that made her spine straighten instantly. Aria turned. And the professional introduction she'd rehearsed dissolved into dust. The man walking toward her was tall, easily over 6 feet, with shoulders broad enough to block the view behind him. His suit, charcoal and impossibly well-tailored, hinted at strength beneath precision. His hair was dark with streaks of silver at the temples, not a weakness, but a signature. And his eyes. God. His eyes were dark, almost black, and they didn't just look at her. They assessed her. Saw too much, too quickly. "I'm Lorenzo Moretti," he said, extending a hand. "Welcome." When her hand met his, a subtle jolt shot up her arm, warmth, strength, something unsettlingly intimate. He held her gaze, and Aria had the startling sensation he could see straight through the polished exterior she'd chosen for today, and into the fractured woman beneath. "Aria Vale," she managed. "It's an honor." He released her hand slowly, his thumb brushing her knuckles in the faintest, most deliberate whisper of contact. "We'll decide that by the end of the meeting." A test. A tease. A warning. He gestured to the conference table, and for the next 3 hours, Aria found herself navigating a battlefield disguised as business. Lorenzo was sharp. Razor sharp. Not the kind of CEO who nodded politely through presentations. He challenged everything, questioned everything, cut through her strategies with surgical precision, then pushed her to defend, refine, sharpen. But he listened. Not distracted, performative listening, real, focused, unervingly intense attention. The kind of attention she hadn't felt from anyone in years. When she spoke, he watched her mouth, her eyes, her hands. When she hesitated, he leaned in slightly, as if coaxing the truth out of her. When she impressed him, the corner of his mouth twitched in approval that hit her far deeper than it should have. By the time they wrapped up, she was buzzing, part adrenaline, part something far more dangerous. "Your analysis is exceptional," Lorenzo said at last, rolling up his sleeves as he leaned back in his chair. His forearms were sculpted muscle, faint scars tracing patterns she couldn't decipher. "Tell me, Miss Vale, can you fix the problems you see?" She met his gaze, matching his intensity. "I can. But only with complete access to your operations. And honest answers to difficult questions." "Honesty," he repeated, standing and walking toward the window. Most people fear it. He looked out at the skyline, hands in his pockets. I don't. He turned back to her, fast, and suddenly he was close. Too close. Close enough that she could smell cedar and something darker beneath it. Close enough that his next words vibrated through her bones. Call me Lorenzo. We'll be working closely. Her pulse stuttered. Dangerous. This man was dangerous in ways Lucas never could be. Then call me Aria, she said quietly. Something flared in his eyes. Recognition, approval, interest. A spark neither of them acknowledged, but both felt. His phone vibrated violently on the desk. Lorenzo glanced at the screen, and a shadow crossed his features, tightening his jaw, hardening his gaze. When he answered, his voice dropped into Italian so low and lethal that Aria felt a chill ripple through her. When he hung up, he exhaled once, clearing the darkness. A family matter. My apologies. He walked her to the door. Send me your proposal by Thursday. We'll discuss it over dinner. Dinner. Not a meeting. Dinner. Ah, yes. Thursday works. His smile was slow and devastating. Good. Aria made it to her car before her composure cracked. She gripped the steering wheel, heart hammering. She'd felt something in that room. Something electric. Something she had never felt with Lucas. Chemistry. Connection. Possibility. Terrifying, impossible possibility. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Dinner confirmed. Looking forward to seeing you again. Well. Aria stared at the screen, breath trembling. She should say no. She should walk away. She should stay safe. Instead, she typed, "Me too," and hit send. By Thursday evening, Aria Vale's nerves felt wound tight enough to snap. She'd changed outfits 3 times before settling on a deep blue dress, elegant, understated, feminine without seeming like she was trying. A car arrived precisely at 7:30. Black. Tinted. Silent. The driver didn't speak, just opened the door with a slight nod. As the city lights blurred past the window, Aria felt a strange mix of dread and anticipation humming in her veins. Not fear, no. Something sharper. Something that made her fingertips tingle. When the sedan stopped in front of the restaurant, she realized it wasn't a restaurant at all. It was a fortress of glass and stone lit softly from within. A private dining establishment. The kind you didn't find unless you were invited. Lorenzo Moretti was waiting in a secluded room, leaning against the table like he owned not just the space, but the very air inside it. He wore a dark suit without a tie, the collar of his white shirt open just enough to make her mouth go dry. His eyes swept over her in one slow, deliberate motion that felt like a touch. "Aria," he said, her name rolling off his tongue like a low promise. "You're stunning." She managed a polite smile that didn't match the way her pulse was pounding. "This place is beautiful." "I own it," he replied simply. "I prefer privacy when the conversation is important." It should have been a red flag. Instead, it felt intimate. Dangerous. Like stepping into a world where rules didn't apply. Dinner unfolded like a dance. Her proposal sat unopened on the table. Lorenzo wasn't interested in paperwork tonight. He wanted to understand her. He asked questions about her vision, her philosophy on branding, her instincts. And when she spoke, he listened with that fierce, unwavering focus that left her breathless. Every disagreement between them sparked heat. Every point of alignment drew them closer. Every glance lingered a second too long. By dessert, tiramisu so delicate it seemed to melt under her spoon, Aria felt the boundaries of professionalism dissolving under the weight of something else. Something magnetic. Then Lorenzo leaned back slightly, eyes dark with understanding. "Tell me, Aria, what changed? Patricia says you've been working past midnight every night. What pushed you into this relentless focus. Her chest tightened. She should lie. She should deflect. But with Lorenzo's gaze locked on hers, lies felt impossible. 2 weeks ago, she said quietly, I came home early from a trip. Her fingers tightened around her glass. I found my boyfriend in bed with my sister. Silence. Thick and sharp as a blade. Lorenzo's expression didn't shift, but something violent flickered beneath the surface. I see, he murmured. And does this man still breathe? The casual way he asked sent a shiver down her spine. Yes, Aria said, startled into a laugh. Unfortunately. Then you are far more forgiving than I would be. I'm not forgiving, she said quickly. I threw them both out. My family wants me to move past it, but I'm done being the reasonable one. Good. His voice dropped, steady and decisive. Never compromise for people who wouldn't bleed for you. His words cracked something open inside her. Something she hadn't known was still breakable. What about you? She asked, her voice softer. No wedding ring, but a tan line. Lorenzo's eyes darkened with memory. My wife died 5 years ago. Cancer. I wore the ring until I was ready to breathe again. I'm sorry, Aria whispered. Don't be. His voice softened with surprising tenderness. She would have wanted me to live again, to pursue what I want without fear. He looked at her when he said it. Direct. Intentional. Her heart stuttered. Then he added, quietly, I have a son, Lucas. About your age. Aria froze. Lucas. Her Lucas. No. Not hers anymore. Her breath caught. The room tilted. She held her expression perfectly still, but inside, everything unraveled. Different last names. A different world. A father Lucas never spoke about. It was him. It was really him. Lorenzo went on, unaware of her silent spiral. We're not close, he admitted. He disapproves of my business and my choices. His mother made sure he knew how to judge. Aria exhaled slowly, forcing calm into her voice. That must be complicated. Lorenzo studied her for a beat too long. It doesn't have to affect us. The word echoed inside her. He insisted on sending her home with his driver. At the curb, he took her hand and brushed a kiss against her knuckles, a simple gesture that shot fire straight through her. Thank you for tonight, she whispered. The pleasure was mine, he said softly. And, Aria, I look forward to seeing you again. She didn't fully breathe until she was alone in her apartment. The moment the door closed, she opened her laptop, hands shaking, searching Lorenzo Moretti. The truth hit hard and fast. Lorenzo Moretti, father of Lucas Chen Moretti. Lucas, her ex-Brielle's latest trophy. And she had just fallen for his father. Her phone buzzed. Already looking forward to our next meeting. Well, Aria stared at the message, heart pounding. She should walk away. She knew that. Instead, she typed, Me too, and pressed send. Sunday arrived with a sky so brilliantly blue it felt mocking. Aria stared at her reflection before leaving for Lorenzo Moretti's estate. Emerald wrap dress, hair soft around her shoulders, a woman who looked composed, even confident. But beneath the surface, her heart thrummed with a dangerous cocktail of longing, fear, and anticipation. The drive wound out of the city into a neighborhood of iron gates and sweeping acres. Lorenzo's estate rose like a fortress, stone, glass, gardens cascading in perfect symmetry. He stood waiting at the entrance, sleeves rolled up, sunlight catching the silver in his hair. The moment he saw her, something softened in his expression, something he didn't bother hiding. Aria, he said, stepping down toward her. Benvenuta. His hand brushed hers, warm, gentle, possessive. She felt it everywhere. He led her through the gardens, telling stories of Isabella, the wife he'd loved and lost. His voice held grief, yes, but also strength, and a strange serenity that made Aria ache for him. When he looked at her, it wasn't through the haze of mourning. It was through the spark of a man beginning again. Dinner was set on the terrace overlooking the fading sunset, private, intimate, the world hushed around them. They talked for hours, about business, about life, about pain, about desire. Lorenzo's gaze rarely left her face. And Aria felt it, an invisible line between them stretching, thinning, ready to snap. But it snapped in a way neither expected. Voices cut through the night. Familiar. Sharp. Wrong. Aria's stomach dropped. Lucas. Before she could move, Lucas stormed through the terrace doors, Betrayal glued to his arm. His eyes landed on Aria, and horror twisted his features. "What the hell are you doing here?" he demanded, voice cracking with disbelief. Betrayal gaped at Aria, her expression contorting into something ugly, victory tinged with panic. "Are you stalking us now? God, Aria, this is pathetic." "I invited her," Lorenzo said calmly, stepping forward with silent authority. "This is my home." Lucas blanched. "You invited Aria?" Aria held her ground, heartbeat loud enough to drown out the crickets. "I'm working with him," she said quietly. "Professionally." Lucas laughed, high and desperate. "Professionally? Please. What, is this your revenge plan? Seduce my father to get back at me?" Betrayal snorted. "She's always been jealous, Lo. Don't let her drag you into her drama." Jealous. The word tasted like rust on Aria's tongue. "We are not doing this," she said softly. "Not tonight." "But Lorenzo." He was done being soft. "Lucas," he said with cold disappointment, "you cheated on this woman with her own sister. In her home. And you dare accuse her of manipulation? You should be thanking her for not burning your life to ashes." Lucas flinched. Betrayal bristled. Aria felt the air thicken between them. "She was boring," Betrayal spat suddenly. "That's why he wanted me. Aria has no passion, no." "Enough." Lorenzo's voice cracked like thunder. "Get out." Lucas looked stunned. "Dad." "I said out. Steal. Finality." A lifetime of authority condensed into one command. They left in a storm of humiliation and fury. The moment the front door slammed, the night fell silent again. Heavy, electric. Aria looked at Lorenzo. "I'm sorry. I should have told you earlier. When I realized Lucas was your son." "When?" His voice softened. "After our first dinner. And you stayed." Not a question, an understanding. She nodded. "Being around you made me feel alive again. And I wasn't ready to give that up." Lorenzo stepped closer, close enough that his breath brushed her skin. "Aria, I don't care about Lucas. I care about you." A beat of silence. A tremble in her chest. A gravity pulling them together. "What if I want this?" she whispered. His hand rose to her cheek, gentle, reverent. "Then we stop pretending this is just business." He kissed her. It wasn't a soft kiss. It was a collision, weeks of restraint shattering at once. His mouth claimed hers with intensity, with hunger, with a need that felt like heat and danger and inevitability. Her fingers curled into his shirt. His hand slid into her hair. The world narrowed to breath, to touch, to the sharp edge of wanting something she knew she shouldn't want. When they broke apart, both were breathless. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against her lips. "Tell me this is a mistake." She didn't even hesitate. "Don't stop." What followed was fire, consuming, overwhelming, forbidden. And when dawn filtered through the curtains hours later, Aria found herself wrapped in Lorenzo's arms, his heartbeat steady beneath her cheek. But morning brought no peace. Raised voices echoed downstairs, one male, one female. Aria dressed quickly and followed the sound to the study. Lorenzo stood face to face with a severe woman in a tailored suit, Giulia Rossi, his attorney, radiating fury. "So," Giulia said, eyeing Aria coldly, "you're the woman causing all this chaos." "Giulia," Lorenzo warned. "No, Lorenzo. You need to hear this." Her voice cut clean and sharp. "Petrov has noticed her. He's looking for weaknesses. And you've just handed him one." Cold dread stabbed through Aria. "Petrov," she whispered. Giulia crossed her arms. "If you stay in this world, you better learn fast. You don't get to love a man like Lorenzo without consequences." Lorenzo moved immediately to Aria's side, protective. "Enough. She stays. Under my protection." Giulia threw her hands up. "Then pray you're ready, because the storm is coming." Aria's skin prickled. Her next breath felt tight. The danger was no longer hypothetical, no longer distant. It had found her. The next few days inside Lorenzo Moretti's estate felt like living inside a storm's eye, still on the surface, but electricity hummed beneath every breath. Security doubled. Dante Russo moved like a shadow through every hallway. And Lorenzo watched her with a protectiveness that felt equal parts devotion and warning. Petrov was circling. And in this world, circles meant hunts. Aria tried to keep working, burying herself in campaign designs, video calls, and brand pitches. But every time Lorenzo's burner phone buzzed, every time Dante returned with a new bruise or a darker expression, she felt the tension ratchet tighter. Then the storm hit. It was nearly midnight when Lorenzo's emergency phone rang. Sharp, metallic, slicing through the quiet. He answered with a single word in Italian, and Aria didn't need to understand the language to recognize the shift in him. His eyes went cold. His jaw locked. His shoulders turned to stone. "What is it?" she whispered. He met her gaze, and the truth landed like a blow. "Petrov has taken someone." Her stomach dropped. "Who?" Lorenzo hesitated 1/2 second, just long enough for dread to turn into certainty. "Your sister, Brielle." The world narrowed. Sound vanished. Thoughts blurred. Brielle. Her beautiful, selfish, infuriating sister. Her betrayer. Her blood. And they had taken her. Aria didn't remember moving, only hearing her own voice, raw, shaking. "I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not. Lorenzo, she's my sister. And you are the one Petrov wants." His hand closed around her arms, firm but trembling. "You stay here. Do you hear me? You do not step outside this estate." Her heart punched against her ribs. "Please, don't shut me out." A war raged behind his eyes, between the man who led armies and the man who had kissed her like she was the last light in a darkening world. Finally, voice rough, he nodded. "You come. But you stay in the car. 2 guards. You don't move unless I order it. Swear it." "I swear." The warehouse district was colder than the night itself, wind slicing through corrugated metal, the smell of oil and damp concrete hanging thick in the air. Dante's men were already in position, silent and lethal as they formed around Lorenzo. They moved like a single organism, waiting for his signal. Aria sat trembling in the back seat of the armored sedan, fists clenched so tight her nails cut into her palms. She heard gunmetal clicks. She heard Lorenzo's voice, low and deadly. She heard the warehouse door groan open. Then, gunshots. The first crack hit her chest like a hammer. The next 3 stole the breath from her lungs. She told herself to stay put. She told herself she had promised. But then she heard a scream, high, sharp, panicked. Brielle. Everything inside her snapped. She bolted from the car before the guards could stop her, feet pounding across gravel toward the screaming. She pushed through a side door. Straight into chaos. Men shouting. Gun smoke hanging in the air. Dante fighting like a blade made human. And Brielle, her sister, was being dragged by a massive man toward a back exit. "Stop!" Aria shouted. The man turned. Cold eyes. Cruel smile. "Mikhail Petrov. You must be the famous Aria Vale," he snarled. "Perfect. You are worth much more than your sister." He threw Brielle aside. He grabbed Aria instead. A gun pressed to her temple. Steel. breath, death. Everything froze. Valentino! Petrov bellowed. Come out or I end her right here. Lorenzo emerged from the shadows like a nightmare summoned, rage carved into every line of his body. Let her go, he said, voice low, lethal. Or you'll what? Kill me. Petrov laughed. You won't risk her life. Aria felt Petrov shift his grip. She remembered the self-defense moves Lorenzo had taught her. She didn't think, she reacted. Her elbow drove into his ribs. She dropped her weight. The gun fired, deafeningly close, but the bullet missed. She hit the ground hard. And Lorenzo was on Petrov in an instant. The fight was brutal, a blur of fists, fury, and violence simmering just below murder. When it ended, Petrov lay pinned, Lorenzo's gun pressed between his eyes. I am giving you one chance, Lorenzo said softly, almost gently. You disappear. Or I end you slowly. Petrov spat blood. But he nodded. He ran. His men followed. And just like that, the night exhaled. Lorenzo dropped beside Aria, hands skimming her face, arms, ribs, desperate, frantic. Are you hurt? Bella, answer me. I'm okay, she whispered, trembling. Betrayal sobbed from the corner, shaking violently. Aria crawled to her, gathering her into her arms. Betrayal clung to her like a child. I'm sorry, she cried. For everything. I'm so sorry. Aria didn't forgive her. But she wasn't losing her. Not tonight. Back at the estate, after Betrayal was taken to safety and the adrenaline faded, Lorenzo sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. I almost lost you, he whispered. I can't do this to you. I can't put you in danger again. Aria crossed to him, cupping his face in her hands. No, she said softly but firmly. You don't get to choose for me. I choose you. Danger and all. His breath hitched. He looked up at her like she was salvation. I love you, Aria. Tears pricked her eyes. I love you too, Lorenzo. They kissed, slow, aching, alive. And when dawn broke over the estate, Aria Vale no longer felt like a woman caught in someone else's storm. She felt like the woman standing beside its center. A woman who no longer apologized. A woman who chose her own fate. A woman strong enough to love a man like Lorenzo Moretti.